Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
There are lots of different options. You don't have to do exactly what you've been brainwashed or trained to do. Retirement can be anything.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I am your host, Billy Keels, and I am super excited about today's conversation. You are going to love it. You are absolutely going to love it. Get your pen out, get your pencil out or your paper or whatever it is you want to write on or your iPad, whatever it is. Today is going to be one of these conversations, especially if you are someone who is in a sales role, in a leadership role. You're really going to love this one. So really quickly, I'm going to get through this stuff, but you want to make sure that you continue to download, continue to share the episodes. This is amazing. The momentum that we are building together is awesome. We continue to move up the charts, and thanks largely in part because you continue to leave your honest written reviews as well as ratings. If you have not done that, we've made it very simple. We have a nice video that will talk you through exactly how you do it on the Apple Podcast platform. It's phenomenal. So just take a couple seconds. We'd really appreciate it. Let us know what you like, what you'd like to see changed. And we've got a lot of changes that are coming for you, which you're going to love. Anyway, also, if you want to check out the previous podcast episodes, you can't find them on your favorite platform, go to billykeels.com. Once you get there, screen's going to change a little bit. Once you're there, you will be able to find podcasts. Just go to that, click, you'll see all the 200 plus episodes, and you can check them all out, video, audio, they're all there. And with that, also, some of you are accredited investors, or those of you that are accredited investors, and you want to have a conversation, you want to talk, you want to gain access to special, unique deals, especially if you are getting crushed by W-2 wages and taxes. You really want to connect. Send an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Once again, that's aiclub@billykeels.com. And today's conversation. This one is one of those that you're going to want to listen to 2 or 3 times. Phenomenal. The gentleman has worked in large corporations, was able to build his side hustle in a very unique environment, frontline sales leader, vice president of sales, very large, big companies. And at the same time, he was able to figure out and find what was important to him. He did the work, and he was able to retire at the age of 44. So today's conversation, you're going to love it. It's with Mr. Cary Love, and we're going to get to that just after this. If you want to know how a strong desire to help others achieve their goals can lead directly to your long-distance investing success, then guess what? Today's the conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise. You know why? Because today's guest, listen to this, not only had an illustrious corporate career, with companies like Xerox, where he had various sales and marketing leadership positions, to companies like 3D Systems, where he was a vice president of worldwide sales, did that for like 5 years. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit more about that. Salespeople, we love hearing about these kinds of stories. He left his corporate career at the age of 44. Then around 1991, he got into real estate, things like land and single-family residences, small multifamilies across the state of Texas. He's also known today as a turnaround specialist and asset manager, and he's providing positive investor returns, which is always music to our ears. He also has an intense desire to help others to be able to invest in their first home and or first investment property. This gentleman loves skiing. He loves scuba diving. He loves golf. And most importantly, he loves his family time. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation the CEO of Hela Property Management, LLC, Mr. Cary Love. Cary, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. It's awesome. It's a privilege. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and keep pestering me until I got on the show. So I'm pumped up.
You know what, Cary? It absolutely makes my heart happy to have you invest your time with us today. I am absolutely positive that so many of the Going Long family are going to get absolute value out of this on so many different levels. So appreciate that. And I really want to get into the conversation. And listen, everybody, I'm a little bit nervous. Cary's a great guy and making positive impact. So you know about this though, Cary. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to get 2 in the beginning. You're going to get 3 at the end. You're probably going to get a lot more questions in the middle, but I just don't know what those questions are yet. So we'll have to see how the conversation goes.
No worries.
But if you could just help us understand, where do you live in the U.S.?
I currently live in a town called Granbury, Texas. It is 30 miles southwest of Fort Worth, Texas, which is in the DFW metropolitan area, Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. And so I've been here for probably since about 2011 is when we built out here. But I found myself, I've actually had 22 different addresses. So I've moved around quite a bit, and no, I was not in the military, but so
I was just going to say, I get that question all the time too, Cary, by the way. Yeah, I'm like,
nope, not in the military, but we have a home right on the lake in Lake Granbury, and we've been enjoying it. So it's been positive.
Okay, absolutely fantastic. So appreciate that. And then the next question I'd love for you to share with us, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Last night, my wife asked me if I would join her in the jacuzzi. So usually it's the opposite. Usually I'm asking her if she wants to get in. It's always a bad day, bad hair day, can't get in. But last night she said, hey, do you want to get in the jacuzzi? So I spent the evening in the jacuzzi with my wife, and that was fantastic. Get some quality time with her.
All right, man. Fantastic. We appreciate you sharing those moments. And yes, every time you can have those moments, those special moments, it's just nice to have that reflection. So appreciate that. And then, Cary, I have to admit something to you. Like everybody in the Going Long family, they know this about me. I really keep a pretty high standard. And sometimes I even give myself these really impossible tasks. Tasks like trying to tell your entire backstory in 3.5 seconds.
Well, you did. You did a fantastic job.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to meet the person. After you did that, I wanted to meet the person.
Hang on a second. I'm going to introduce you to him. But so, listen, it's impossible to tell it in 3.5 seconds, right? Because you've done way too much. You've impacted too many lives. But I have to try because this is what I like to do. But the thing is every week or every conversation, they forgive me because they know I'm going to keep trying. And the thing is, I'm really hoping you'll forgive me. But more importantly, if you can help me, because I would love for you to tell your own backstory in your own words. And also, I'm going to ask for a little favor. And that favor would be if you could tell us about some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey. And then from there, we'll see where we take the conversation.
Wow.
Over to you.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I started working at Xerox Corporation at a fairly young age, and I had a successful career. And in 1991, my wife was pregnant, and she did not want to have a child while we lived in the apartment. And so I went out and I was looking for a place to purchase, and I was struggling because I knew that there was a strong probability that I would be transferred with Xerox. And so I found a duplex, and purchased it. We closed in August of 1991. My son was born in October of 1991, and I was transferred November 1st, 1991. So that's why I can remember that was my very first property that I purchased. I still own that property. It was a duplex. And it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage on each side. And so that kind of got me into investing. So fast forward, I was with Xerox for approximately about 20 years. And I had a wide variety of different assignments and covered the U.S. And then North America from a sales marketing. That was a great, fantastic job, and it gave me the ability to explore and see different parts of the country and talk to a lot of different people. So before my Xerox career, I was motivated because I worked for a company that is now part of Dillard's, and they were bought out by Dillard's, and it was really interesting. I was 19 at the time or 20 at the time. And these people were getting checks. They were getting checks that were $50,000, $75,000, $100,000. And I was trying to figure out why these people were getting checks. And it was something that was called 401k plans that they had contributed to. And when they sold the company, then they got their 401k back. And most of them took it in cash. Well, that got me to start thinking about my retirement. So at that age, I was focused on what my retirement looked like. And I had made a conscious decision that at 45, I wanted to have the option to retire if I could at age 45. And so everything that I did after that was focused on that piece of it. So I tried a lot of different programs out there. L. Williams, Amway, all the network marketing programs. And I was good at doing it, but I was always moving around because of Xerox. And so it was kind of hard at that time to keep a network going. And so I had the real estate and I decided that this was working out. So I just started continuing to purchase real estate after about 5 years after I purchased my first one. So fast forward, left Xerox, worked for a company called 3D Systems. I was traveling the world to Europe, to Asia, across the US. It was a fantastic opportunity. I learned a great deal. And then also, I was worn out. I'd been traveling probably for 20 plus years. And I like to tell this story because it's kind of interesting because it puts it in perspective is that I was in this country and I woke up in the middle of the night and I called my wife and I said, hey, babe, I have no idea where I'm at. And she said, you're in Japan. I said, okay, that solves the first question. I don't know why I'm here. I don't remember why I'm here. And so she said, Cary, I think that you can stop. So after that trip, I got back home. I ran the numbers and realized that she was right. So 18 months later, I told her, give me 18 months later and I would stop. And 18 months later, at the age of 44, I was able to achieve my goal that I was able to stop and leave the corporate world. And that's what I did. So that was kind of a long story to get to there, that I was able to achieve the goal that I had, to have the choice to leave the corporate world at age 45, and I left it at age 44.
Love this story. Personally, I can relate to the waking up in the middle of the night and not knowing where you are, right? And I know we've talked about this before, having been fortunate enough to travel around the world and see 86 countries at this point. You're traveling a lot, and sometimes you can't remember where you are. Then to take it to the level of not remembering what you were there for, of course, that was something. And so maybe if we could peel that back a little bit, Cary, because you talked about a number of things. But I am curious. Well, maybe we'll come back to that. But you tried a number of things. So you said you knew that you put this goal in front of yourself to say you wanted to have the option, which I love that you wanted to have the option of being able to leave at 45. Why? What was it about 45 and not 55 that made you shoot for that number?
Well, ironically, there was somebody that was working with me at that time, and they were saying that they were going to retire at, I think it was 60. And I think at that time they were about 52 or 53, somewhere in that area. And what happened is they had a major stroke. And that prevented them from achieving their goal, meaning that he wanted to travel and do all those types of things after he retired, and his health declined fast. And so that prevented him. And so my perception is that I wanted to be able to retire at a young age and a healthy age and be able to do all the things that I wanted to do. I didn't want to put off living for tomorrow. I wanted to live for today. I wanted to see things. I wanted to go places, and I wanted to have the option to be able to do that.
Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. It is one of the things, and as you know, I've been living in Europe for the last 20 years. And so sometimes I will see there's two groups, either like, because I'm from Ohio, right? And so either you see the people that are right out of college or the people that have waited until retirement that are traveling here. And so to have that foresight to say, look, I want to be able to do things while you're young, while you can, while you're able, and especially you're extremely active, that made a lot of sense. And you know what, Cary, it's interesting because one of the patterns that I'm recognizing is that typically when we are setting goals, the goals are not related to finances or what makes us take action. Excuse me, it's maybe a better way. What makes us take action is not finance, is not money. You witnessed someone who had a physical issue, a health issue, and that really made a major impact on the way that you set your goals for your life.
Yes.
Maybe you can
and
speak
that
to
story
that.
is told many times. It doesn't have to be that person. I have associates, friends, people that I've met that, again, they bought something in Florida. They're going to move to Florida in 3 years. And then they move to Florida. They're retired. And then one of them passes away.
Mm.
And now you have a person that's down there, doesn't really know anybody, hasn't established. And so their retirement just went out the window. And so, of course, what she did is she sold to Florida, went back up Northeast to where she knew people. And so that's one of the reasons why I purchased in Granbury several years ago, is so that whether it would be me or my wife, we would have established roots down here and we would know people. She feels comfortable. She knows where everything is. So, if something happened to me, she was going to stay here. She's going to feel comfortable because this is the home. This is her retirement home that she's made.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe we could talk a little bit about, so as you tested various options. As you were traveling, I mean, you're talking about so many things that resonate with me a lot, and so many different people that are listening or watching us today, because we have a lot of people who are high-paid professionals, a lot of people that are in the software sales industry. Surprise, surprise, because that's where I spent the better part of 20 years. But maybe you could talk to us about what was it specifically about real estate versus like the multi-level things that you were doing. You kind of talked about it high level, but made you really decide, hey, listen, if I'm going to place my bets, quote unquote, I want to place them here in this asset versus maybe some of the other assets that you at least tested or tasted.
When I purchased my first property, which was the duplex. And I lived on one side and rented out the other side, got an FHA loan on it, and it actually worked out very well. And the reason why I purchased it at that time is because I had to purchase something, because I knew I potentially could get transferred. I had to purchase something that I could either sell or I could rent. And I'd never been, I was never a landlord. This was my first entry into it, but it worked out very well. So I didn't sell the property. We moved and I rented it out, and I was making a positive cash flow at that time, probably about, $250. I think the interest rate on my loan was somewhere around 14 or 15%.
Can you repeat, Cary, can you repeat? So this is really, really interesting, right? And it's very timely. So would you please repeat what you just said on that duplex, the interest rate?
Yes, the interest rate was somewhere around 14 or 15% at that time on that duplex that I purchased, and I was still making about $250 a positive cash flow, and it just puts it in perspective. Yep. That interest rate was very, very high, yep. And the interest rates didn't come down for a while. But what actually took place is that I ended up buying another duplex in the area probably about 5 or 6 years later. Okay. And then I bought something else. And you asked me why. It's because I looked at the numbers, and real estate is one of those things that it's not a quick wealth rich scheme. It's a long-term plan that actually can have a huge impact. Now, I'm not saying that you can get lucky and make a bunch of money in a short period of time, but that's not really what my strategy was. My strategy was for Horizon. And I looked at it and said, hey, if I do this is going to work. So I ended up getting aggressive about it, because once I put it on paper and looked at it and said, hey, this is what's going to take place, because it was kind of interesting, is that somebody else was paying my note down. The value of the duplex was actually going up. And so when I purchased the other one, I could see the impact. And I said, wow, Cary, if you really do this and you started buying a property every 2 years or something like that, what does that look like? Fast forward, I was on a plane, red eye, going from either California to New York or New York to California. I couldn't sleep. So I got a spreadsheet out and started playing with the numbers and said, wow, if I bought a property a year for the next 30 years, what would that look like? And you say, okay. So I said, okay, at the end of 30 years, I could sell 15 of them, pay off the other 15. And that's a pretty decent number. I said, okay, so let's just say that the average rent at that time is just $1,000. So I said, wow, I can live on that. That is a retirement plan. That is foolproof. I can make that work. So I said, okay, well, Cary, what if you did 2 houses a year and do 15-year notes? I ran the numbers and I said, oh my gosh. I started getting really pumped up about it and saying is that, it doesn't really matter what everybody else is saying. This plan will work. And I just need to execute it. And so it just happened is that it worked a lot faster than I anticipated.
Yeah, those plans typically do, especially when they're written down, modeled, and you're taking action. I found that was exactly the similar kind of thing. So maybe, Cary, you could talk to us about, because I feel like there are a lot of people that struggle with this. I know that I went through something very similar. When you are in a corporate role and you are working for a market-leading organization, and you are specifically in a sales capacity because you are the person who's responsible for bringing in the revenue.
Yep.
You're the person who every single time at the end of the quarter, it's all about you and is it happening? And you indirectly are responsible for everyone else that is there, because if there is no revenue coming in the door, everything else in the organization suffers. So you're in this highly visible role. You're in a highly, and I'm going to make an assumption here, in a highly paid role. And at the same time, you dare to be doing something else outside of that role, right? Maybe you could talk to maybe some of the feelings that you went through. I don't know if it was something that you were sharing with other colleagues, the things that were happening, this new life that you were creating through real estate and what it was providing you, the freedoms it was providing you. But I know that a lot of people struggle through that. Like I said, I personally struggled through that. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about your experience in that type of highly visible role while you're also now building another life on the quote unquote on the side.
I had some really good mentors at Xerox Corporation. I met a lot of good quality people and learned quite a few things. And it's easy. It was kind of interesting is that you could learn from the things that they did well, and you can also learn from some of the mistakes that they did. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at any of the corporations, whether it's GE or I won't say Enron, but, there's a lot of companies that a lot of people put their entire investment and profit sharing and everything into that. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of looked at it very differently. I kind of looked at it as that my Xerox or my corporate job, it paid my lifestyle, paid my bills right then. But I never looked at it as that was going to be my retirement plan. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I was a high performer. I did very well in the division that I worked for. There was numerous times that I was the number one person in the U.S., number one salesperson in the world, whether I was a district manager, whatever it was. I had a very good track record. I think we had an incentive plan or incentive club that was like President's Club, and I think I don't know, out of 17 times, I made it 15 or 16 times. So that was what took care of it. So what I looked at it is that there was 2 different buckets. It was the bucket that took care of the here and the now, and the bucket that I said was going to help me for my future. Mm. And I had to invest in both of them. And I remember telling my wife at the time, I said, listen, I believe is that I can work as hard as I can right now for Xerox and for myself so that I have the option of not having to do that later on. And that was a personal choice that I did. I think that at the beginning of this interview, you said about personal choices and how they impact you. That was a very personal choice. So I would tell you is that I missed a lot of vacation time. I missed holidays sometimes because I was either going to a class or I was going to look at real estate. I remember having my kids with me, going around looking at houses to buy. I remember on July 4th one year, I was at a meeting And I had company coming from Dallas down to Houston to visit me. And I said, well, hey, I got something tied up during the day, but I'll see you guys at 6 o'clock. Because that was what was important to me. Because I realized is if I didn't do this, it was going to have a negative impact. I was not going to be able to achieve my goals. You asked another question about, did I communicate it? No.
Okay.
I started communicating it early that I was trying to do some stuff, and I was faced with such negativity that I realized that this is going to bring me down. So I said, hey, I've got some other plans. I'm just going to do this. Now I shared it with a few people, but for the most part at work, most of them did not know that I was doing this on the side. And so therefore, if I didn't meet my numbers, nobody could say is that, hey, because you're focusing over here. And so for me, it was just two different worlds.
Yeah. And I love how you break that down. And I can tell you, Cary, like years later, I personally went through, and the reason we're sharing this is I want you, as you're listening or watching or running on the treadmill, you're not alone. You can be a high achiever, a top achiever, have the as Cary would talk about, your here and now. And then you also have to be thinking about your future. And you may be in the type of role that Cary was in, that I was in, where it's not really well looked upon to talk about it, because when you're in a highly paid role in a highly influential company, sometimes the culture can mean that although it's not against the rules, it's just, we don't want to hear about that there. So it's okay for you to continue to build your future, because at the end of the day, it's your family, it's your loved ones that are there, that will be there for you. And so when you can, just know that you're not alone. So Cary, I appreciate you sharing that. And like I said, I've been through something very, very similar myself. You kind of highly touched on it at a really high level. And I'll just share this. Like, I know that because of my focus, there were things that I also missed. I talked pretty openly, and it was one of the things that was a reason for change for me, was missing my son's 3rd birthday. But I knew at the time that's what propelled me to get started. And then I recognized that after that, there would be I wouldn't miss any more birthdays. You talked about having that focus and having that dedication, knowing that you wanted to get to your goal of being able to have the option of leaving the corporate world before 45. Maybe could you talk about the positive aspects of it? Maybe were there things that were difficult or challenges, things that you did miss? I know you said you missed events, but I don't know if those are family events or those work events, or if you could talk to that side.
Well, all successful people, they have made sacrifices. You have to make some sacrifices. And for me, the sacrifices that I lived out of a suitcase for a long time. I traveled. I think I've been in 43 or 44 states in the U.S. I've been into a lot of countries. I've never counted the countries, but I've been to a lot of different places. And I did. I missed. I usually would come home and get home on Friday, and I was either leaving out Sunday night or Monday morning. And the positive thing is that when I got home, my kids were glad to see me. But I did miss the baseball practices, the football practices, the basketball practices, and things like that. But when I got home, boy, quality time was really good. So the kids never left my side. I don't care where I had to go. And again, if I was looking at real estate, my kids went with me. If I went to go play golf, they many times they went to go they played golf with me. They were everybody's caddy, because I wanted to spend quality time with my kids when I could, because that was the sacrifice that I did because I was traveling. I made good money, but on the flip side of that is that the kids and I got to see some things that they probably never would have gotten to see as a young men. They saw and traveled more than the average adult did. At that time we were traveling. We went on at least 2 vacations a year, and one during spring break and one during the summer. And so that was the other thing. I also learned is that if I'm going to work hard, I'm also going to play hard. So when it was time to do recreation or go on vacation with the kids, I was totally devoted to that. Now, if I was in the Bahamas, yes, I did look at some real estate still. but but I didn't let them know that. But I was looking. I was pricing. I was still looking at it. But I guess the point is that when I was in, I was in. When I was there, I was there. And I still worked on the things that I needed to do to accomplish the goals that I needed to accomplish.
Okay. And that is, and once again, for the Going Long family, as you're listening, successful people make sacrifices, and that is part of the journey. There will be something that helps you to understand now it's time to shut on or shut off or whatever the case may be. I don't know if your family, if you grew up very blue collar in a blue collar household or not, but just because you talked about your kids and being able to expose them to things, experiences specifically, maybe you could talk to that, because I know you're extremely active. You talked a little bit about golf. I know you do some other things, but maybe you could talk about some of the other activities that are important for you and also are exposing your kids, your grandkid, and things like that.
Sure. I wanted my children to be able to be comfortable in any environment. So at a young age, I put them in tennis lessons, golf lessons, swimming lessons, ski lessons. They know how to dive. So they're certified scuba divers as well. They got certified when they were, I think, 13, 14, 15, whatever the youngest age they could. And I took them on trips. And so to do those things, my grandson, we just went to and put him in ski lessons this year up in Park City, Utah. And that was fabulous because it brought back the memories that I did with my kids, so it was just like that. So, so now I have the flexibility to do quite a few things. And so today, I can tell one of the kids, matter of fact, I'm looking at going to Cozumel for a dive trip. And I called my youngest one and said, hey, I'm going to be up here with some friends. If you want to come, you have a place to stay. And if you want to dive with me, that's great. If you want to hang out, that's fine. If you don't, that's cool too, whatever you want to do. And it gives them a lot of options that they can come and spend time with dad if they want to do that in some really cool places. And so, my middle son, we've done quite a few things together. My youngest son, we've done quite a few things together. My older son, we have not done as many things because now he has a family and he has a job, he has responsibility. So that's a little bit different, but I get to grab his grandchild and we're getting him a passport so he can travel with us. So, those are to me, I think that those are the things that I'm going to remember, and that he's going to remember and the kids remember. They'll talk about, hey, Dad, do you remember when we went on that cruise and we did blah, 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 blah? Those are cool. Those are great memories. And those were the things that were important to me. So, again, I worked hard. And I've been called a workaholic to some degree. And so now, I try to balance it out with family and friends and doing things. But today I get to choose the amount of work that I do. Yeah. If Billy, you invited me to Barcelona, I want to be able to have the time and the flexibility to do that. I don't want to have to answer to anybody that says, no, I can't do that. I can't afford that. Well, no, that's not the case. I can. And it's just a matter of time and flexibility.
So, Cary, you just made it really easy for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing you here in Barcelona.
Sure.
So
sure.
We'll be working on that next. So we'll do that off camera.
Okay.
It's really interesting because I do want us to get to, because I know the way that you are focused on helping others is really important. But just one last thing, if we could, just on that transition from corporate to really being in control of your own life, your time, the way you use it. When you left corporate, like you were in the big machines, right? They're big market leading companies, and there's this kind of frenetic nature that happens constantly. There's a constant buzz, right? And even if you're producing at the top, like there's constantly things happening. And nowadays it's even worse because we're connected to phones and we're connected to the computer and you're on 24 hours a day and blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
But did you feel that, or I guess what was the day after that you were no longer in the big corporate entity anymore in terms of the the buzz, the need to constantly be producing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Like maybe what was that first week like for you?
Yes. So I think that I was so excited that probably for the first 6 months, I was just planning my next thing I was going to go do. So the first year, I think 10 months out of the year, I was someplace. I went traveling. I just went and did stuff. But the hardest thing for me to overcome was the year-end push.
Mm.
The year-end push and the quarter-end push. Third quarter was always good, and fourth quarter was always good. And so it was the thrill of the chase and hitting your numbers, where you're going to figure out finish out the year at, and those types of things. And so my first 3 years, I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
there was no push,
Yeah.
But then I got a different perspective, because now, I celebrate Christmas. Well, yeah. The retails, they start selling it, October 31st, but I start celebrating Christmas December 1st and on, through. Yeah. So I get the December is a month. So now those holiday seasons I really enjoy, because previously I was pushing to close. I was pushing my people to get stuff closed so that we would finish out the year and hit our numbers.
Oh yeah, that rings a bell for a lot of people. And so so if it took you months and in the first years afterwards, so I feel okay. It's not that bad that I keep checking my phone every once in a while. So
no.
So let's. I do want to kind of pivot here and just talk a bit about. So you've been able to build your company, focus on the things that you want, most importantly, have your time, and being able to do that in an area that makes the most sense for you, for your company, but also you have this real passion, because this is one of the very first things that when I met you that we talked about, was really this desire to help others, and you actively spend your time and your energy helping people to have their first property, and whether that be the property that they're living in or their first investment property. And I know that that's something that's really kind of like at the gut level, something that you want to do. Maybe you could also help us understand where does that come from, and kind of some of the things that you're doing today to help people get into that first property, whether it be investment or home.
Okay, it's a good question. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit to that. I share this because I believe that I was the first person in my direct family that graduated from college. My mom eventually graduated from college after me, but linear, I was the first person that graduated from college. And so I would say is that we lived an average family. But I had a great friend, and we're still friends today. And I won't say his name, but we lived in San Angelo, and he lived in this, I'm going to call it the White House. Mm. It was, at that time, it looked like it could have been on 5 acres, but realistically, it was probably on 2 acres of land. It was his house set back, and it looked like the White House. And I met him in the 7th grade, and we've been friends ever since. But what it did is that his family lived very differently than my family. Mm. They went to, for Christmas break, they went to Vail every year that I knew him. Vail, Colorado, they skied for Christmas for Vail. Then in the summer, they went to this place called Horseshoe Bay, and they would spend a month in Horseshoe Bay. And so, I'm there, I see his dad, I see his mom, see his family, and they're just like us. They just have nicer things and they go places. And so I said, what makes him different or this family different than me? And a lot of times it's just about knowledge and information. Knowledge and information. And so I was on this mission. I became on this mission to be sure that I can provide that type of a lifestyle for my family. Then I also looked at it as that how do we change the paradigm of other individuals? And sometimes it's just they only know what they know. And there is a different way. There's different lifestyles. There's different way of doing things. You don't have to do it exactly the way that Bob did or my parents did or somebody else, did. So yes, so I've helped people get into their first house. So my goal is to help 5 people a year. That's what my goal. So I'll go back 4 years ago. I had helped 5. And last year before, after that, I helped 5. Last year, I was only be able to help 4. And so you say, well, what does that involve? Well, whatever it takes. So in some cases, I've helped people with their credit score. Because a lot of people didn't understand how credit really works. I remember people telling me is that, hey, I bought this car. They gave me a great interest rate. I said, oh, okay. Yeah, I got 13% on a car. And I'm thinking, okay, great. But because they were not aware of really, if you have good credit, what you can actually get. Yeah. So I just look at it as that, the plane that I operate on is very different from the people that operate way above me. And that's okay. But if I can bring some other people up and expose them to a different lifestyle, a different way, what passive income is, why you want to do what wealth is versus what rich is, it's just a whole different concept. And I've met a lot of different people, and I've been able to help a lot of people. And I really enjoy that.
And I love that story. I mean, there's a lot of different things that that relates to, right? You talked about being able to have knowledge and being able to have the information. And I was talking to a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, the other day, and we were talking, and Cary, in that conversation, he mentioned, hey, best year ever, and these things. This was amazing, and because we had the most amazing year we've ever had. I got the good fortune of paying an additional $200,000 to the U.S. government. And I thought, well, how did that feel? And it was like, well, not very good. The first part felt good, but the second part didn't feel very good. And it was a matter of not really understanding that just because you had a good financial year doesn't mean that you have to do certain things. So there is the level of knowledge, as you talked about, the information that you have access to, and the information that you have, and then the access. Right. And so being able to help already, because you hit your targets, you're 5, 5, 4. And that's amidst COVID, which is pretty amazing, by the way. And so I'm sure that this year will be 6, but that's okay. So you'll get to where you need to be. And I appreciate you sharing that, because it is important, and everyone can make an impact. What are the things that are important for you? And how can you go about being able to achieve and positively impact other people's lives? So, I guess the one thing that I would like to ask you is, beyond the things that we've talked about today, I mean, what are the things that they're working on, or the things that you're helping people with today?
You're a good example of what I'm about to say, because I try to tell people is that your retirement is what you determine your retirement is, and it doesn't have to be the way that someone else does it. I talk to my friends, and I talk to different family members, and and they'll say, I'm going to live in this house until blah 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 blah. And I'm like, or I'm going to have to work until I'm 75. And I hear these stories, and I look at this and said, well, there are lots of different options. You don't have to do exactly what you've been brainwashed or trained to do. Retirement can be anything. And, there are people that are living in Barcelona. There's people living in Panama, Costa Rica, and they're living very well and retiring. And the number is different, that defines what wealth is, or what rich is, or what, what is your monthly amount that you need. Mm-hmm. And, I try to share somebody with people is that, well, heck, you can live in Mexico for $40,000 a year.
Yep.
What? Yes, you can live in Mexico for $40,000 a year and live very, very well. So, yes. One of the things that I keep looking at is trying to get people to change their paradigm, the way that they're thinking. Because, I remember when I was traveling all over the place with work, I remember meeting some expats in Thailand, and, they were living They had drivers, cooks, and all these people, and it was costing them somewhere around $22,000 a year.
Yep.
You think, wow. Well, yes, if you change your paradigm, if you change what you believe and open up, you have a lot more options. And you think, oh, well, I couldn't leave my family, or I couldn't do this, or I couldn't do that. Well, you can make those choices, but at least understand that you have choices to make.
Absolutely. And yes, you have choices to make, and it is about taking action, right? You are exposed to it. You have the knowledge, you have the information, you have the access, and then it's really up to you at that point to be able to take action and live the best version of life that you are willing to live. So listen, Cary, I know that I could just keep talking to you forever and ever and ever and ever, and probably will do that, but I'll do that off camera later on. But we've got to get into the Going Long Final Three, man. And so the thing is, I never ask anybody the Going Long Final Three, Cary, unless you tell me, and today you're our special guest, that you're ready for me to ask you. So are you ready?
Sure. You can ask me the final three.
All right, cool. I knew you were good. Yeah, you were good. I knew you were going to say you were good. I didn't expect anything else. So here we go. So, and also we started with you over in the great state of Texas, and I'd like to bring things back to this side of the pond now, since this is now my adopted new side of the pond, adopted hometown here in Barcelona. So if you could, Cary, will you share with us your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
My favorite city is Rome. I have been to Rome 3 times. It is a beautiful city. And I think the reason why I just love that city is because there's just so much history that's just right there. The first time I stayed in there, I think I stayed in a hotel, and it was over 1,500 years old. And it was incredible. I ate at a restaurant, and the structure had been there 1,000 years. And again, I've been there 3 times, and I still haven't seen all the stuff that I would want to see. And it's just very, very, very beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Dare we say eternal?
Yes.
So yes. So Rome. So we will include Bella Roma. And in the show notes as your favorite European city, not on your bucket list, but you visited 3 times. So, so question number 2, and this is something, Cary, that I just consider myself to be very, very fortunate to have been in contact and continue to come into contact with very successful people. I consider you to be someone who's very successful for the things you've done, the lives you continue to impact. And one of the things that I notice about successful people, and this is just one of the things I've noticed, right, is that successful people, unlike most people, when they come up with a plan, they put the plan together, they execute the plan, they get it right the first time, and then from there, they're able to go over and over. Hang on a second. Maybe it's the nerves. No, it's not the nerves. It's just a joke, Cary. It's just a joke. He's thinking to himself, oh my gosh, Billy, did you say that? No, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. With me and the Going Long family, everybody checked out the video version. Cary was like suffering for me. No, so there, of course, Cary, no one gets things right the first time, especially really successful people. The reality is those people that are very successful, they get like 20 to 50 times more mistakes. They make 20 to 50 times more mistakes. Well, because they're successful. But the thing is, and this is no joke, this is serious. The thing is, every single time that there is a relevant mistake or learning opportunity or whatever you want to call it, Cary, when that happens to someone who's successful, without a doubt, every single time they stop, they learn from the mistake, and then they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again. That being said, I don't want you to think about the mistake or the learning opportunity. What I'd really like for you to think about is the lesson. And what is the one lesson that you learned that you know the Going Long family needs to hear today?
That I would classify it as that everybody does make mistakes. And that they're all recoverable. Every one of them are all recoverable, and that you can move on and learn something from. Some of the mistakes I've made turned out 20 years later, or 15 years later, or 10 years later, it looks like it was a great great opportunity that I consciously made that decision. And it wasn't. It just turned out is that time has a way of healing or fixing a lot of stuff. I made tons of mistakes, but they were all what I would call stepping stones. They were all put in front of me to overcome. And once I was able to overcome, okay, I've seen this before. I'm sure that there's going to be different variations of it. So what it's taught me is to be able to anticipate. But I'm still going to be making mistakes because we just don't know everything. And there's just no way. We're always going to be able to make mistakes. But I always look at it this way as well. You can learn from a mistake several different ways. One is that I can tell you. So I used to tell my kids, look, if you put your finger in that fire, it's going to burn, it's going to hurt. Now you can learn from that. I'm telling you that. Or you can put your finger in the fire and it's actually going to burn you, and it does hurt. Either way, you've learned. One, it can be very painful, and the other one is you just kind of learn and took it. So
yeah. All right. So want to make sure that every mistake is recoverable. Every mistake is a learning opportunity, and it is also part of the process. So, I can't believe it, but it's time to ask you the very last question, Mr. Love. So, Cary, here we go. Because we love to really fill everyone's head with knowledge. I know it's something that's important to you as well. I would love for you to share, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
So I've read a lot of books. I'm an avid reader. But the book that I read the most recent that I really enjoyed that I would highly recommend, it's called The Psychology of Money. And it's by Morgan Housel, Housel. And it's been very, very interesting of a read. It got me to think about some things I had really not thought about, and got me to look at things that were from a different perspective. And also, what are the other factors that take into place for people being successful or not being successful? And it puts it in perspective. There was a lot of things that I wasn't aware of that that book pointed out that made sense after I read it.
Yeah, so it's a great one, The Psychology of Money. I finished it about just over a month ago. So.
Oh, you read it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
It's a very good one. We'll chat about that when you're here in Barcelona, because you mentioned that.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that. We'll probably have one or two other books to talk about as well. Cary, I'm thinking about just the conversation, the things that we've talked about. You talking about your career early on. We didn't even get the pre-career things, but a couple of things that really resonated was, number one, having a number of corporate roles where you're in the front line, the spotlight, revenue generating types of roles. You were very clear when you recognized that, well, people that waited, or that were in your experience that were waiting to live life at retirement, you didn't want to do that. So you made a very conscious effort to say, hey, listen, by putting their stake in the ground to say by 45, I want to be able to have the option of being able to leave the corporate world. And so then you tested a number of different things. You didn't just say, I want to do this and had no plan. You tested, you figured out what was the thing that was for you. And that was that nice little duplex that was purchased in 1991, I guess, right before you left in November. And right before your son was born as well in October. And since then you had the experience that continued to compound, and you were having, you were on the plane and on your red eye and deciding, hey, listen, let me build out the business model. And you went from, 30 units in 30 years to how can I collapse this to do half and half? And you said, wow, this actually looks like a much better retirement plan. Not like what you saw everybody getting at the Dillard's company when they were getting these 401k kind of checks. These were streams of future income that you were creating, and being able to create your future, also knowing that you had to make some sacrifices along the way, but you made those sacrifices to be in the position that you are today, where you can continue to invest your time the way that you want, with the people that you want, and how you want, and when you want. Being able to see your family, your friends, And, I know that there are so many people that are taking inspiration from this conversation today, Cary, and they're just like, Billy, will you just ask him the question, man? Okay, so clearly, let me ask you the question, because everybody wants to know, Cary, what is the best way that the Going Long family can find out more about you, more about what you're doing at Cary Love Property Management Company, LLC, and how we can get in touch?
The best way would probably is my email address, which is Cary@Halah, HALAH, prop.com. And you can also find me on Cary J. Love, LinkedIn. So my son is also Cary Love. So you have to put Cary J. Love, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
All right, awesome. So we're going to include both of those in the show notes. And when you connect with Cary J. Love on LinkedIn, Going Long family, you know the routine. Just make sure when you reach out to him that you let him know that you've already invested time in listening or watching this conversation. Hopefully you were watching it, because with his face when I made the whole thing earlier, it was classic. So definitely check out the video version. Yes, so make sure that you leave him a personalized invitation. And Cary, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for deciding to invest your time with me, with the entire Going Long family today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. This is awesome. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. And Cary, if you give me 15 seconds, just going to wrap things up with the Going Long family, and then we will be out of here. So listen, Going Long family, what can I say? I mean, Cary left it all here. He shared it all. He talked to you about his experience. He gave you insights into the things that you can be doing, looking for more knowledge, looking for more information, gaining access. And he's even made himself available to have a conversation with you. So take today's conversation, make sure that you're already downloading it, share it with somebody. Have a conversation about it. Talk about the different concepts that Cary shared with you today. It's going to make you a better investor. It's going to make you a more informed person. And look, while you're doing all of that, I'm going to be preparing for the next conversation. So I'll be waiting for you here. And so until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.